I don't know, Simon, because it makes you look super poor and shitty. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Business Blaze. This one, recycling is a waste of time. Here's what you can do about it. I don't know if this is actually true. I heard like the recycling is kind of a bit pointless and it's just a thing to make us feel better about throwing away tons of shit. So I asked Danny to look into that. He did. We got 4 pages to do, so let's crack on. Here in the UK, we usually call them dustbin men, or bin men for short. They're not giant walking dustbins. That'd be a bit weird. They're just the people who drive through our streets at regular intervals to collect our waste. Depending on whereabouts in the world you live, you might call them trash men, garbage men, or waste collectors. I feel like these days you'd be like, what was it, waste collection specialists or something. I remember even like 15 years ago when I was a kid, I worked in like a supermarket. I was just a till boy, you know, like, hey, boop, boop, and then stacking shelves, and I was a customer services assistant. I realized that the Business Blaze channel is probably not the ideal platform for me to go on a rant about my own personal problems with local bin men. Danny, have you watched Business Blaze? It is literally half of what this channel is. But I need to get this off my chest. They drive me mad because it's usually such a struggle to actually get them to collect anything. Oh my god. Okay, I feel like Danny's having a rant. I'm gonna go on my own rant. I've got no problem with bins. That works remarkably well here. The all I do have is the post office. It's like, how about you deliver my mail rather than leaving me a note which says, hi, you weren't in. Come and collect your parcel at the post office where you'll have to queue for ages. And it's like, dude, I literally... This isn't my home, this is my office. I am here like 12 hours a day. Back when I was a kid, a dustbin man would walk all the way around to the backyard of your house, pick up your overflowing bin, flip it over their shoulder, carry it all the way back to the disposal truck, manually emptying it into the back of the truck, and then return the bin to your backyard. They usually did all of this without complaint and while simultaneously smoking a cigarette and having conversations with passerbys about the shit weather. These days, you have to do most of the work yourself. Well, I mean, it is saving money. And because of that, taxes are now way lower. Oh wait, no they're not. It's no longer just one bin for everything either. Now I have to make sure that my wheelie bin is for general waste, my crate for glass, my bag for cardboard, my bag for plastics, my bag for paper, and my separate bin for garden waste are all perfectly aligned on the pavement at the end of my drive, and that the dustbin men could quickly lob it all into the right compartments of the trucks, except that a lot of the time they don't. I have to say that's pretty convenient. Here, paper, plastic, and glass you gotta take to the recycling things, but it's on my way to work, so I just take it with me and I throw it in the recycling on the way to work, which works quite well. I'm sure that 99% of bin men and trash men are perfectly reasonable people, but it's just that my lot are total swines. Danny, you know what you have to do? What you need to do is you need to be very middle class, and you need to write a letter to your MP, who will subsequently do nothing, but it might make you feel better. If there's just the slightest discrepancy, if the bin bags are just an inch too far away from the curb, or a bit of paper is dropped into the bag for cardboard, or a worm has crept into the bag for plastics, the dustbin man will just quite often dismiss the whole thing to teach me a valuable lesson in life. I feel like it's my post people, it's like, oh, we didn't see you in the window, so we assumed you were out. Every postal office in this country has like a 1.2-star rating or whatever on Google because everyone's like, how about you deliver my mail? Oh, this just happened to me again fairly recently. As I approached the end of my drive and started shaking my fist at the sky, one of my neighbors saw my plight and shook his head in sympathy. He started going on about how it was such a shame that we spend all our time separating our rubbish into different bins and bags, and then the council trash men just don't bother to pick it up. And I don't want to be a dick here, but it's like, if I was in this situation, I'd be like, look guys, if you're gonna make it difficult for me, I'm just gonna put it all in general waste. And look, I don't want to get in a lot of trouble here because I'm sure, like, you know, all the environmental people, like Greta Thunberg meme, are gonna be like, Simon, this is outrageous. But if I was in this situation, I'd be just like, guess where all of my waste is going? Because if you don't make it easy for me, I'm not gonna bother because I don't care that much. I mean, I care, but like when it's this and my trash is overflowing, it's like this has got more painful than the pain that I will feel when, you know, the world is a horrible, you know, post-apocalyptic disaster because I didn't recycle my paper. He went on to say that even when they do pick it up, all of the recycling is a complete waste of time anyway, because it all just ends up getting dumped in the same landfill as general waste. And this is what I was wondering about. My neighbor reckons that recycling our waste is something forced upon us to make us all feel warm inside and make us believe that we're making a difference. And I think this is what I heard. It's kind of like, yeah, recycling. It makes you feel better about the enormous amount of plastic waste that you're creating. It's like, oh sure, yeah, I can get another bag, or it's like, it's okay that Amazon sends, you know, me this, you know, one tablet and it's wrapped in like 17 layers of plastic. It's okay. I'm gonna recycle that plastic, so that's all good. But could it be true? Am I really wasting bags of time every day by recycling my bags of waste. Most developed nations produce more waste than we can reliably process at home. Here in the UK, the average household produces about a ton of waste a year, which equates to about 31 million tons per year. That's an average of 1.1 kilograms or 2.4 pounds per person per day. That seems like a lot. In comparison to the US, which currently holds the title of world's most wasteful nation, we're number one. Generates 267 million tons of household waste per year, which equates to 2 kilograms or 4.5 pounds per person per day. That's like twice as much as the UK. I don't feel like we're that different. Although the US represents 4% of the world's population, it currently generates about 12% of global waste. Our general waste, food, and anything else which doesn't have its own distinctly colored recycling bin or bag, is either incinerated or sent to landfill, as we would expect. But it's the supposedly recyclable materials that have a more mysterious fate. Before we go any further, we should separate our plastics from the rest of our recyclable materials, just as we would if we were pissing about trying to sort out all our rubbish in real life. Okay, so we should. Stuff like paper and card and glass is often recycled on our own territories because we can just about cope with that, or at least about half of it. Oh, that's still not good. So half of that stuff is just going to landfill. Fantastic. I feel like that's still terrible. The paper and card get sent to mills, the glass is crushed and melted down and molded into new products. The real problem is plastic. And with glass, I feel like you can also reuse bottles. Like here, all of the beer comes in bottles and you pay a deposit on the bottle. It's like, I don't know, 30p, 40 cents equivalent. And then when you return the bottle, they give you like a little credit voucher and you can either go buy more beer, which is what I always do, or you can get the money back at the till, which is kind of a pain in the ass. The real problem is plastic. Up until very recently, the UK, along with the rest of Europe, the US, Australia, and loads of other countries, were quite happy to just export most of their plastic waste to China. So essentially, we throw it in the bin, then the government throws it in another bin, and it ends up, and by bin I mean China. But I mean, they're treating it like a bin. That's nothing against China here. It's more like just governmental policy. That's kind of the dick move here. Recycling plastic is actually a very time-consuming and expensive and impractical and dangerous business, and most developed countries don't really have the resources or inclination to do it in-house. So they shipped most of the lot to China and just let them deal with it. Over the course of 30 years, China has received about 10 million metric tons of plastic from the rest of the world. Well, given that 31 million tons a year is what's produced in the UK, or like total waste. I don't know how much of that is plastic. What, 10%? 5%? 10 million metric tons over 30 years doesn't actually sound that bad. Although I'm sure that is it's still an insane amount of plastic. Like 10 million metric tons, I can't even conceptualize how much that is. That all stopped on the final day of 2017 when China introduced its national sword policy. Epically named policy, by the way. I'm sure it's not actually called that. It's called something like actually in Chinese. But whatever. Essentially, China got fed up of everybody else's shit. The national sword policy bans the import of 24 types of waste, including, crucially, plastic. The official reasoning was far too much of the incoming waste was contaminating and creating environmental pollution issues in China, but it's believed that the main driving force behind the ban was the release of the documentary film Plastic China, which went viral before being hastily pulled from the Chinese internet. In China, it's like, we don't want people to see this documentary. Okay, it's removed from the internet. No one can access it. This video brought to you by NordVPN. I mean, it's not. The film revealed the harrowing truth behind China's recycling industry, as it followed two families struggling to survive by picking their way through mountains and mountains of filthy plastic and melting down any rare salvageable stuff into hardened pellets to be sold for a pittance to manufacturers. The rest of the plastic just gets burned in the open air. And it's at these moments that it's like sometimes, like people like Simon, you work so hard, you've got like 7 YouTube channels. And I'm like, dude, you serious? I work hard. This is hard. This is hard. My life's a joke. The families spend their days inhaling dust and microparticulates from a home village enveloped in plastic detritus as the kids wash their faces in grey polluted water and eat fish that choked on fragments of plastic. Following the national sword ban, the Western world was naturally left with a problem, which it resolved by sending most of its plastic waste to other countries such as Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Good news, boys! We've got a solution to this problem! Oh, what is it, Mike? What we're gonna do is China's not accepting, we're just gonna ship it to Malaysia. They're still poor, right? You guys, come on. It should be noted that many of these countries already have a woeful record in mismanaging their own waste without the burden of the rest of the world's garbage. And many of these countries are already losing patience with the situation. On the very day I'm writing this script, up-to-the-minute news, when this was written, which was about a week ago. And I mean, this is the 30th of January, so you guys are probably seeing this around July. On the very day I'm recording this script, a news story reports that Malaysia is returning 42 shipping containers back to the UK because they contained ingredients that weren't labeled on the tin, illegal contaminated plastic. Oh god. Are we like sending them sharps and This isn't right. 100 other shipping containers were also sent back to the country of origin, as the Malaysian environmental minister publicly vowed that her country would not become the dumping ground of the world. Good for her. It's only a matter of time before these countries close their doors on imported garbage for good, and the rest of the world will have to deal with their own waste and dirty plastic. It's impossible to fully monitor the complete journey of plastic waste from your recycling bin or bag to its final destination. The plastic usually travels through a labyrinth of recovery facilities, private waste companies, brokers, and traders before landing on the mountains of garbage in a country that's usually thousands of miles away from your original recycling bags. This is really depressing, isn't it? This was titled, yeah, and what you can do about it, so hopefully we're gonna find out what we can do about it. This sucks. So actually, by throwing away your plastic in just general waste, you're just fucking up your own country instead of some poor other country? I'm kind of into that. At least then, it becomes my country's problem, and then the government will be actually incentivized to fix it. So, yeah, I'm just gonna stop recycling my plastic and dump it all in the main waste. Not a recommendation, just seems to be the logical solution. This means that we don't have reliable stats on exactly how much plastic is generally recycled, but the expectation is that it's very, very low. According to the US Environmental Protection Agency, the overall recycling rate for plastic is about 9%, and even that figure is optimistic. Look at it this way, most plastic is just unrecyclable. We used to send most of our plastic waste to China, where evidence shows that much of it was burned in the open air and ended up in landfill. Jolly good. We currently send it to other countries with poor track records of managing their own waste, and it seems probable that most of it is just incinerated or sent to landfill. When these countries close their doors, we'll have to deal with the growing stockpiles of our own plastic waste, which we don't have the capacity to recycle, so it will eventually end up incinerated or sent to landfill. Yeah, so by throwing it away now, you cut out the middleman of the government fucking other countries over. Whey! The outcome hasn't drastically changed over the years. It's just that governments and councils will possibly have to be just a little more transparent about the true fate of your dirty plastic, instead of trying to make out that it's being magically recycled in a faraway land. It's like, yeah, we sent it to China and everything, 100% was beautifully recycled in pristine facilities. And it's now been used to make, what can it make? Clothes for poor people. So what can you do about it? Well, it's not rocket science, really. I know what the answer is. Just don't use so much plastic. You need to buy less one-use plastic. Okay, yeah. Part of the problem here is that millions of consumers feel like they're doing their bit for the environment by sorting out their recyclable waste into different bags and bins. Yes, this is exactly it. It's like, it makes us feel all warm and fuzzy in the side as like nice middle-class lives. Like, hey, look, I'm recycling all this stuff so I can use all this stuff. It's like, no, you really got to stop using it and don't let, if you think you're recycling your plastic, it's basically like, you're not. Don't feel good about that. Feel shit and stop using so much plastic. I should stress again that relatively high levels of paper, cardboard, and glass genuinely do get recycled, but you're actually doing very little to help the environment by filling up your recycling bag with loads of plastic. What you need to be doing is buying and throwing away far less of it. Of course, there's only so much that a consumer can reasonably do in a marketplace overflowing with one-use plastic. Yeah, it's insane. Like, I ordered something off Amazon the other day. It was covered in a lot of it was card, to be fair, but there was so much plastic in there. I just made a picture of it, like the actual item, which was, if you've seen my geographics channel, biographics channel, visual politics channel, I do it on a different set, and there's a light in the background, just like a standing light, and it's quite small, and the amount of the paper and plastic that this came in took up the whole of a giant carpet, and I just took a picture of it, put it on Twitter, like before and after, like actual product, and then all of the wrapping. It was just madness. Amazon actually replied to my tweet. They were like, yeah, we'll look into that, and I was like, no you won't, but thanks. Doesn't make me feel better. The manufacturers and retail stores need to step up to the plate by reducing the amount that they produce and sell and offering more eco-friendly alternatives. Dude, the government also needs to do something about this. Like, I'm pretty capitalist. I feel that, like, let's let the companies have a crack at it. Like, don't need to regulate them. If they're doing it right, they know what they've got to do, but they're still using tons of plastic, and it's like, all right, guys, if you can't regulate yourself, we're gonna have to regulate you. So come on, government, let's make our goods a little bit more expensive. I don't know, people love their cheap shit. Oh, there is no easy solution, is there? Otherwise, well, it wouldn't be a problem. They may eventually have no choice. When Western countries realize that they're drowning in stockpiles of plastic that they can no longer shift abroad, it's possible that tighter regulations on the production and selling of one-use plastic will be implemented. That would be a good day. In the meantime, we need to support the businesses that are already making the effort. One character from yesteryear who's tipped to make a major comeback in the next decade is the milkman. I know this is a British person. Is a milkman like an international thing as well? It's like a dude who drops off milk in the morning. It had these cool silver tops that as a kid, it was cool. Although I think silver top was whole milk, and my parents always got semi-skimmed, which is like half and half in the US. I don't know, like 2%. And you press down the top and you take it off and then you pour the milk. It was pretty cool. We had a milkman, milk, eggs, orange juice if you were posh. Whoa, I just got milk. I didn't even know he did all that extra shit. An Alpine pop man, fizzy pop, a bakery van, bread buns and cakes, and a fish man. What are you talking about? This existed? And even a teabag man. He usually sold tea bags, although he did briefly experiment with biscuits for dunking. Is that for real? British people, when did that go away? I mean, the milkman was like one of my earliest memories, like early 90s. Maybe a fish man, that could be familiar. I remember a fish man might come on a Friday, but maybe that's just because people eat fish on a Friday. Although the milkman largely disappeared in the 1990s, when he could no longer compete with the cheap prices in supermarkets, there are now obvious advantages in the concept of getting your milk delivered in glass bottles, which are collected and used again. Of course, this brings us to the whole other argument about the carbon industry, about the carbon intensity of glass bottles. But considering that glass bottles can be used 25 times, they are easily recyclable, that's got to be a better option than buying your milk in one-use plastic packaging, which isn't. Or we could use like multi-use plastics. Like I've got, sports water bottles or whatever. Those things last forever. Or you could just, even a Coke bottle, but like an empty half-liter Coke bottle, you can just refill that up with water and use it many, many times. I definitely did that like before apparently I was too poor to buy like a sports bottle. Or I was just like, why would I buy a sports bottle when I can use a used Coke bottle? I don't know, Simon, because it makes you look super poor and shitty. The UK supermarkets recently adopted a 5p charge for plastic bags, which saw their use fall by 85%, while in Norway, consumers are now charged a deposit for every plastic bottle they buy, which they get back when they return the bottle. Okay, good, so people are doing this. Zero-waste shops are now popping up around Europe, in which customers are invited to bring their own containers, otherwise it's going to be tricky taking that banana milkshake back home with you. Now this is true, and I've seen these stores, and they sell kind of the same things. So like there's one near me, which is like a drugstore. But in the drugstore, the stuff is cheaper than the same stuff in the store where you have to bring your own bottles. And I'm like, guys, unless you economically incentivize me to bring my own stuff, I'm really not gonna bother because I'm that lazy. However, Starbucks, if you bring your own cup, they'll give you 10 crowns off, which is like 30p, which actually, that's like 10%. That actually feels like that's pretty decent. I don't do it because I'm like, I always forget to wash up the thing at work and then it gets moldy and then I regret it and then I have to throw it away and then I have to buy a new one for like 100 crowns and I never make my money back and it sucks. New companies such as Loop have just hit the UK, the US and France, which allow you to order your products online and have them delivered in reusable packaging, which is picked up again by the courier, washed and then sent back to the producers. That's excellent, I like that. The whole thing is obviously a joint responsibility between governments, local authorities, manufacturers, retail stores, private waste companies, and consumers. Agree, we all need to do our bit. But look, it just seems that manufacturers really aren't, so I feel like as consumers, we need to just rebel against that, but we're not going to because we like our cheap shit. So really, government needs to step in. I'm not a big government boy getting involved in your business, but might be time. But we can certainly play our parts by embracing the business models that are promoting greener values. There was an old environmental mantra: reduce, reuse, and recycle. If the final word in their catchy slogan isn't always working in the way we hoped, we need to put more emphasis on the first two: reduce and reuse. And if this all sounds a bit hypocritical as Simon reads aloud from a wad of paper that he didn't necessarily have to print out, just bear in mind that he's really hammering that reusable coffee mug. Oh, I don't even have my coffee mug. Oh, but also they're disposable. I have a new one each time. This has been Business Blaze. Thank you very much for watching. Use less plastic. Did we just have a business blaze with a moral lesson to it? I like that. Sort of. Anyway, whatever. Hit the like button if you like this. Dislike it if you didn't like it. Subscribe, notification bell. That's my YouTube shilling. I'll see you next time.